What's in bonzai3d? Now here's just a few of the many features. I don't have time to show them all, but we'll just highlight some of the more important features. One of them is the fluid, powerful, and smart interface, which includes automatic guides. So as you're drawing stuff, these guides just automatically show up, and these help you to line things up and snap to things and make sure things are perpendicular and tangent, things like that. Intelligent snapping goes along with the guides, and this really helps to speed up the modeling process because it helps guide you as you're creating your objects. bonzai3d is also well known for the ease of sculpting objects. So you can draw and insert on faces, you can reshape faces, you can offset faces or segments, and this is important. This is all done with real-time Boolean operations. So when you reshape the object, you can always be assured that you have a good, clean, solid object that can be used in any other program out there. Classic modeling tools with real-time dynamic editing. So if you create something as simple as a wall, a primitive, revolving, sweeping, helical object, whatever you create, you get a set of controls that can be used to further edit that object. And notice that you always have numeric information too. So you can always either dynamically, graphically modify that shape in a conceptual way, or at any time you can always type in numeric information too. So you get the best of both worlds. Now for creating more organic type shapes, you can use the deformation tools. These work with any object, solid or surface, and just twist, bend, bulge, and taper it to create more abstract looking shapes. Speaking of organic forms, even though it's a front-end conceptual modeling program, it even has Nurbs tools. So you can create, edit some very sculpt some very complex forms using the Nurbs tools in bonzai3d. And we'll take a brief look at those inside of our short little presentation today. Now there's also some other specialty tools throughout the program. So if you're an architect, you might like this tool. You can create a roof by just simply clicking on any boundary. Whatever highlights red, when you click on it, it'll try to form a boundary and it'll generate an actual roof. And see, there's plenty of parameters there. You can see you can actually edit that live, just change the parameters, and it'll automatically update and regenerate that object as you change these parameters. All right, stairs. Now, whether you're an architect or not, sometimes you're doing video game design or whatever, just trying to conceptualize something. I mean, sometimes you still got to create stairs and roofs and things like that. These are parametric stairs. Just click on a line or click anywhere to create a spiral stair. There's all sorts of parameters, and you can see you can dynamically update that right there in the modeling window. Just push and pull on those controls. Of course, you can put in all your parameters inside the dialog also, so you have the best of both worlds there, to be able to create an infinite variety of different types of stair type objects. 3D terrain modeling, meshed, stepped, or triangulated 3D solid terrain models. They can be created from just some contour lines that you create yourself, or you can import contour lines from any other program if you have the accurate contour line information. So whether you're an architect with a real site plan, or you're just a video game designer, or you just want to sort of conceptualize a scene with some kind of 3D terrain, no matter who you are, you can use a 3D terrain tool to create all sorts of neat landscapes. All right, now to help peel away some of the layers of your model, of course, you can organize your project on layers, or you can use the clipping planes. These are dynamic. You can move those around. You can have multiple planes on at the same time, and you can also model inside of those clipped areas. And if you want to make those permanent, you can actually cut section views with those. So you can use it as just a visualization feature, or you can also make permanent section cuts with those for maybe construction drawings. So there's a lot of uses for that. Dimensions, 3D dimensions. You can add those anywhere that you want on your model. And it should be noted that these are associated with the object. So if you were to reshape the object or modify it, you can see that it'll then update that dimension. All right. And bonzai3d has components. What is a component? Well, it's just a group of anything you want to store, sort of like a group. There's hundreds of trees and furniture and people that come with bonzai3d, and so you can place those in your scene. The other neat type of component is the doors and windows, and these automatically insert an opening into the object. So if you search the libraries, you can just place a window and automatically punches a hole. You can move that window anywhere that you want, and the hole moves along with it. And if you copy that window, it copies the hole also. And of course, we have hundreds of them, but you can also create your own if you want to. Visualization, and many different ways to visualize your design in bonzai3d, from a very abstract way all the way up to a very photorealistic way. And of course, that is achieved through many different display modes that are available, anything from wireframe and shaded interactive rendered modes, hidden line, doodle, sketch rendering modes. There's a Renderzone Plugin for Global Illumination for accurate lighting. And so there's many different ways that you can present that either to yourself or to your client. Materials. Hundreds of materials come with bonzai3d. It's just part of the program. You can create your own if you want also, of course, obviously. Live interactive texture mapping, so when you drag and drop it on the object, you can see you can actually resize it, scale it, rotate it, move it around live right there in the modeling window. So it's pretty much what you see is what you get type of modeling environment. Lighting is important. Of course, there's many different light types that come with Bonsai. There's even a sun database. Choose any city, any part of the world, and automatically position that sunlight for you. Now, there's simple and accurate parameters. Simple are just a simple percentage value of how bright the light is. It's a real quick, easy way to light your scene. But if you need accuracy, well, of course, we have that option too. You can go in and assign input power, output efficiency, and things like that. So you can get as accurate as you need with those light sources. Here's a neat little feature in Bonsai. It's a match view tool. Actually, if there's time today, I would like to actually show this today. It just takes about a minute or two to show it. And what you can do is take your 3D model and match it with a background photograph. It's a very easy, intuitive way to do that. And you'll see that in our presentation today. And you can also, when you render your scene, you can actually render shadows and reflections into the background. And that's a neat little trick that can be done. Now, here's probably the most important aspect of bonzai3d. You know, we have all these tools. They exceed a lot of the types of modelers that work at this conceptual level. Not only do we have more tools and features, but it's also good, clean, worry-free, solid geometry. So you can use this geometry in any other application without having to fix it or have any problems with it. So whether you need to take your conceptual model to construction drawings, fabrication, rapid prototyping, whatever you want, we guarantee you have good, clean, solid objects. Now, how do you learn the program? Well, it's a very intuitive program. You'll see in this introductory presentation that I'm going to show you here. I'm going to launch bonzai3d and just show you how easy it is. But when you're trying it for yourself, just simply right-click on any tool, and you can choose the manual option. The entire manual is embedded inside the program. It'll take you right to that page. And if you're like me, I like someone to show me how to do something, so I learn better that way, which is fine. To simply right-click the tool and choose the video option. There's a short little video that shows you step-by-step how to use that particular tool or feature, and that's a nice way to learn those tools and features too. And actually, each of the tools by themselves, it's a short video. It's only a few minutes long, but if you were to watch all of them for every tool, I think it's like 5 hours of video stuff there. So there's a tutor right there built inside of bonzai3d. All right, with that, what I'd love to do is launch bonzai3d and go ahead and start showing you the ease of the interface of how you can create objects. So what we'll do, let's switch over and launch bonzai3d. Here we go. All right, first thing I'm going to do is just show how the interface works. Here's all of our modeling tools. If you want to draw something, here's all of our drawing tools. Let's select the 2D rectangle, and notice when I draw that shape, we get these guides that automatically show up. So you can see I can maybe snap right on the guide to make sure it's a square and pull it up. And once we create a object, we get a set of controls. No matter what the object is, we'll get these arrows. And so if you don't quite draw it right the first time, we get these arrows that can move and modify based on what that shape is. All right. Let's say we want to draw some other objects. Well, notice that as I move my cursor, it automatically highlights and makes my working grid on any face of any object, so I can actually draw at that level, or maybe draw on the front face of the object over there. It's pretty neat. Now, the drawing tools also have an insert option, and what that does is when I draw on the object, I can use any of the drawing tools, splines, circles, whatever I want. When I draw with the insert option, it actually takes that profile. If I draw on the face, it'll actually insert it into that object, so I can add or subtract volume by drawing with the drawing tools on any face of any object. And there we go, push or pull to add or subtract volume. Okay. Now let's look at the ease of sculpting objects. So we can, add and subtract volume by drawing on it, but there's also a whole suite of reshaping tools, and these are my favorite tools right here. I use these all the time. Here we go, reshape. What this does is just sort of move over and whatever you highlight, for example, this face, and reshape it, and I can reshape that face anywhere that I want. So if I reshape it outward, notice that this is real-time Boolean operations. So you can see I can pull it outward to add volume, and it actually heals that geometry for me. If I push it inward, it'll subtract volume. So I can actually subtract a whole part of the object. So I can move this face. And if I grab this whole face and push it through, notice it'll actually subtract that whole part of the object. And if I reshape it now, it takes the current state of that object. And so now I can reshape that back out just like that. So you sort of get a feel for the real-time Booleans that are taking place when you reshape objects. Something else we can do is offset a segment. And what that does is just click any edge anywhere, and you can see I can offset that. So now if I offset that maybe along this face, put one right there. Let's offset this edge, put that right there. Now the insert option is on by default, meaning not only does it offset it, but it does insert it into the face. So now we can see it's still a solid object, but now if I reshape that face, you can see that we've actually added additional faces to that solid object. Now, when I reshape, that shouldn't be confused with just moving a face. Those are two completely different things. If I move a face, that's not a Boolean operation. What that is it's just moving a face, and all the topological information follows along with that. So that's just another way of being able to modify that object by just moving a face. We can move a segment. So you see how easy it is to modify that object just by moving a part of it, maybe a segment. We can also move points. We can actually pick the points one by one, or we can actually window pick a bunch of points over here like that. And I can see I can move that around and maybe place that over there. So there's a variety of different ways of being able to reshape the object or move different parts of it to sort of sculpt it into the shape that we want. Now, here's some other neat reshape tools. Here's an offset outline. What that does is allows us to click on whatever's highlighted. It can be just a few segments or maybe a whole face, and notice it just creates an offset shape. Okay, that's sort of neat. You can go in or out, and notice that the default setting is the insert option is on by default, so it actually inserts it into the face. So now if I were to reshape that, you can see I pull that up, and you can see that I'm adding additional volume to that object. Pretty neat, huh? Let's try that again. Offset this top face, maybe. Now, of course, at any time, notice that I get these guides here. I can sort of dynamically, graphically eyeball it, or I can just type in a number at any time. So if I type in a number, enter, boom, it always keeps track of what I'm doing. It's sort of neat. I don't have to highlight any numeric prompts or anything to make that happen. All right, now I inserted that offset. Let's reshape that, but instead of going outward, let's go inward to subtract a little bit. So we create a little parapet there. Or watch this, because this is real-time Booleans, I can take that top face, just reshape it all the way through, and it actually subtracts a hole in there. This is a good, clean, solid object. Pretty neat, huh? All right, let's see what else can we do. Here's an imprint tool. Let's see what that does. That thing's neat. What you do is you imprint any type of profile into the surface of any object. So let's create a 2D shape. So what we'll do is use the vector line tool, and I'm going to turn the insert option off because I don't want to insert it yet. So what I'll do is just draw on any face. Let's draw on this face right here. And I can use the vector line tool and switch over to the arc tool and spline tool and just sort of mix and match those drawing tools in any combination that I want. And there we go. Now there's a 2D shape. As soon as I create it, I can move those controls to modify that shape if I want. There's some line editing tools. So I can join, trim, and close lines if I want. Maybe put a fillet radius on there to round those corners that are there. Okay. And once we got that shape, that is a separate object. And then using the imprint tool, what I'm going to do is take that line and imprint it into the surface. Actually, let's undo that for a second here. I'm going to make a copy of that because I want to do that on the other wall also. So let's rotate and copy that. Notice I can just take that object and automatically snap to the corner, and the rotate tool gives me this nice little angle there. So I always get these visual cues and feedback to always keep track of what I'm doing. That really helps me out. Okay, let's try the imprint again. I got two separate lines. Let's do this line on that face, and let's imprint this line on that face. Now that's fused into that geometry. So you can see if I were to reshape and I pull that new face out, you can see that it's part of it. So that's just a real quick way to add additional features or information to your solid object by imprinting those profiles in there. Pretty neat, huh? All right, let's look at one more thing. The introductory slideshow, we talked about some specialty tools such as the roof tool. It's pretty cool. How does that work? I'll show you. Just click on the tool. And as I move the cursor over, I don't have to select anything else. It just wherever the cursor is, whatever's highlighted, it's going to try to create a roof from that boundary. I can put one on the side there if I want, or maybe on the top edge right there. And there we go. Now it's highlighted orange, which means I can change any of these parameters. I can make it a gable, hip, change the slope, just modify any of these parameters and see that it updates live right there in the modeling window. So it's a real neat, powerful way to change it. All right. We also talked about stairs. Let's see how easy it is to create that. All we need is a path for that. So here's our path. All right. Select the stair tool. Click on that line, and there it is. There's our stair. Of course, we can change the type of stair, put some landings in there, Maybe put some railings in there if we want. So here's all the parameters up here on the right hand side. I can change those there, or of course, see, I can dynamically edit that. I can snap it to the second floor, change the width of the stairs if I want, change the path that it follows, so on and so forth. Pretty neat, huh? All right, let's undo a couple steps back, and let's talk a little bit about guides, because guides are a very important thing when you're modeling to help really speed up that modeling process. There's a few different ways that those guides help out. One would be if I'm drawing a wall. For example, a vector line is a 3D wall here. Notice that when I click, I do get these automatic guides that show up. So I can click on the red guide, x-axis, the y-axis, that is tangent, that is perpendicular. And no matter what I'm drawing, arcs, curves, whatever I get these guides that help me make sure that things are lined up exactly how I want them to be. Now, of course, if you want, you can put your own guides in there anywhere. So there's a guide tool. You can very easily just maybe click a couple points there, click a couple points over there, and those guides can be positioned anywhere that you want. It's sort of like an object. It's not really an object. It's not a line or anything. It just sort of infinitely extends through your scene. You can move them and rotate them and delete them, but you can say it's snap right to the intersection of those. That's one of the ways of doing that. Or you can just create them right on the fly. You don't have to use the guide tool. For example, if I want to create a water feature, let's say a circle is a 3D wall, and I want to get to the intersection where these two corner points of my building line up right here, what I can do is, as I'm drawing, just hit the space bar at any time. So I hit a space bar over there, hit the space bar over there, and see it automatically creates XYZ guidelines for me at those positions. So I can snap right to the intersection there and draw my shape. And there we go. Now everything's lined up perfectly. So there's quite a few different ways that those guides show up. All right, how's that? Okay, with that, what I'd like to do is, this is more of the rectangular type geometry. What I'd like to do is show off some of the other more organic ways that you can model in bonzai3d using Nurbs. Of course, you don't have to use Nurbs to do organic modeling. I mean, there's all sorts of spline, curves, and smooth surfaces that can be created. And for example, the deformations can twist things. But with that, let's look at some different ways to creating more smooth type of geometry. One way is just use the spline drawing tool. And let's extrude that up. And notice that I just click a few points here. Double click and pull it up, and there's our curve. Now, of course, as soon as we create it, what are the controls that we have? Well, we have the height. We have the controls of the spline curve. And if that's all we need for the shape, we're fine. We're done. What if we want more control over that? Maybe we want to sort of sculpt that into a more convex, concave type shape. Well, what we can do is use our Nurbs tools. Now, there's many different ways of making Nurbs objects. I'm just going to show a couple here. That's all I got time for. But here's one way: is just take something and convert it into a Nurbs object. So use the Nurbs Convert tool. Click on it. Boom. Now it's Nurbs. It looks exactly the same, but what's different is if I were to, right-click on that object, you can see I can show the controls. Now I have additional controls on there. If I want to increase or decrease the controls, I can reconstruct the Nurbs object. Click on it, and you can see I can increase or decrease the number of controls. So let's modify that control up there. So now we got controls on the top, the bottom, in the middle, everywhere, and now I can create a more complex looking shape. Now here's one really neat thing about bonzai3d is it automatically texture maps objects for you. And of course, in order to see that, we need some kind of a material on there. So let's drag and drop the bonzai3d logo, and notice that it does conform to the curvature of that surface. Now, it doesn't have to be Nurbs for it to automatically texture map in any object, whether it'll use cubic, cylinder, spherical, parametric mapping, whatever is needed. It looks at the object and just decides what's the best type of mapping for that. And it'll use different mapping systems on the same object. So if there's a straight, flat part and a curved part, it'll use different mapping systems on different parts of it. It does all this for you. So it's sort of neat. Now, this is one way of making Nurbs, just take a surface and convert it to Nurbs. Let's look at some other ways of making some Nurbs objects. What we'll do is recreate this counter that we have here. Maybe this is a counter, maybe a counter for some kind of trendy merchandising store or something. We have this nice little leopard skin pattern on there with a glass top. Let's render this in Renderzone, and let's see what it would take in order to recreate this. We have a nice reflective glass material on top of that, a very smooth organic surface down here. Well, what we did is we started off by drawing a couple of 2D shapes. Of course, you know how to do those, right? Just use the spline drawing tool, just create some closed shapes. You can move those controls around to sculpt it into the shape that you want. Now what we're going to do is move on to the Nurbs tools. We can do a loft, a Nurbs loft lofts a surface through any number of shapes. Now here we just have 2, but you can have as many as you want. You can have 3, 4, 5, or 20 of them. So here we just have 2, so it's fine. Just click on those 2, and notice that it lofts a surface through those shapes from one to the other. Now, of course, we have some controls can be used to further edit that. So if I were to show controls here, you can see I have controls on the top and bottom. If we want to increase or decrease the controls, we can reconstruct it, tell it to give it more or less controls on the object. And of course, you know, we can move those around. So push this out, pull it in, whatever we want to sort of sculpt that into the shape that we actually want. Okay, now that's sort of nice. We can create a very organic shape that way. What if I want to put the glass countertop on top of that? And I want it to match that top shape exactly. Well, since I moved those controls around, that top shape of that Nurb surface doesn't match that original shape that I've drawn. So how do I get that shape back? What we can do is use the derivative tools, which allow us to derive objects from the existing object. So we've already saw that. So I click on that. Then we use the outline tool. And with that, what we do is we go ahead and generate an offset profile. So that glass is going to overhang that object. So then what we'll do is we'll delete that inside shape. And then what I said is with the reshape tool, we can take a 2D flat surface and just reshape it up, and that'll make that a 3D solid object then. All right. And then at that point, that's where we use the rounding tool, and that can be used on just a single edge or anything we want. Maybe that's my problem, is the radius was too large. I'm trying to put a 2-foot radius on a 3-inch piece of glass. I'm not sure. It probably didn't like that parameter. So, okay, so we'll put 1 1/4 inch, click on the object, and notice that it'll then round those edges on there. It's a nice smooth piece of glass. Okay, with that, what I'd like to do is bring our the bottom base of the counter back. There we go. And we need to add some materials to this. How do you create glass? Glass is real easy. What you do is just give it a white color and choose glass accurate. It has all the parameters that you need to accurately recreate glass. So it has reflectivity on the surface, transmission through it, and an index of refraction. So light will bend as it goes through the material. Now this one I found, bonzai3d comes with hundreds of materials that are organized in all these categories here. And I was just browsing through. I saw this nice little leopard pattern. I figured, what the heck, sort of crazy. Maybe it's a trendy store or something. So we can drag and drop that onto our object. Now, as I said, bonzai3d is automatic texture mapping. So if I need to change that, notice that all I do is I use this edit texture tool. I click on it, and you can see that I can increase the horizontal or the vertical scale of that texture. So I can increase the vertical size, horizontal scale, make it any shape that I want. And also notice I can move that anywhere that I want to. So you can see here that I can actually control the position of where that texture is. So you have a lot of control when you're applying these materials to the object. And the last thing we'll do is maybe give this a nice little render zone rendering. And we'll see our nice accurate glass there with a nice rounded corners. And then I'm not sure about that wallpaper pattern I have on there. Maybe reduce the scale a little bit. That looks sort of silly, but what the heck, we're just having fun here, right? Okay, with that, I still have time to show you one more feature. What I'd love to do is show you the match view tool. And what this allows us to do is take our model, and what we need to is perspectively match with some kind of background image. So we go into our display options here, and we can choose any type of background image. We could either take that image and map it as a cubic or a spherical image, so it wraps around the scene, so it's sort of like a 3D effect. Now notice as I spin this, of course, I'm spinning this real-time live on my machine, but through the internet, this is being broadcast to lots of people out there. And so based on the speed of your web connection and things like that, you might get a little bit of a hesitation or a delay in the frame rate of being able to see what's on my screen here. But I can actually spin this thing fast in real time, and that's how it would work on your own machine. But this is just a webinar, so you're watching just sort of a reduced frame rate of what I'm doing over here. With that, not to get sidetracked here, let's move on and load some kind of background image. So what we'll do is, let's say I go out to the site, I take a picture of the site that I want to place my model in. There it is, drops into the background. And then what we're going to do is use the match view tool, which is right here. This thing's really cool. What we do is we click on it, and what we need to do is match points on our model to points on that background photograph. Now, of course, I can try to find the edge here, the corner, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to help me out here by drawing a 2D rectangle, and I'm going to draw it around to the corners here. So now I actually have a snapping point there. because how the match tool works is you have to snap onto physical part of your object. So there I can make sure I find the corner there, snap on that point of the object. Now I can click anywhere on that pixel image. How about right about there? All right. Of course I can move it anywhere I want. Let's do another point pair. Click on the geometry, click in your background image. Now look in the right hand corner. Notice that I get this little preview window right here. And what's happening there is it's sort of a zoomed in area of where my cursor is, so I can actually find the exact pixel that I want to match my 3D model with. Let's take the back corner point there and place that right there. And we just have 3 there. It's probably not enough, but let's try it. Let's click the solve button. And when we click that solve button, it'll try to match those together. Now that's pretty close, not quite good enough yet. No problem. Let's add one more point pair. So we'll maybe take this position back here. Let's add another point right there and tag that to the background image right there. All right, and you can add as many as you want. Of course, you can move the ones that are already there, so I can just grab that point, maybe move it somewhere else on your object. I can grab this point, put that anywhere on the background image. So it's very easy. You can see how easy it is to put those positions anywhere that you want. Click the solve button again, and it'll try to calculate, and there we go. It's all set up. All right, so that's sort of neat. I don't need that ground plane anymore. So what I'll do is find our delete tool and get rid of that plane that I created there, so I can save it as a view here. Now, at this point, we're pretty much done. If we render this, you can see our geometry is sort of perspectively matched with that photograph. But let's take this one step further, just for the heck of it. What if I want some shadows or reflections of our object to show up inside of that background photograph? Well, that's really easy to do. What we'll do, let's go back to shaded work mode. I'll use the vector line tool. I'll draw a 2D ground plane. I'll just draw a flat surface here. And the color, here's the real trick. The color, it's not going to be green, blue, or white. It's going to be whatever the background color is. And for the reflection, we'll choose the catcher option, which allows us to catch just shadows and reflections on that object. So it's an object that we won't see, but we can catch shadows and reflections on there. So if I were to draw that, I'm going to speed it up here. I've actually drawn the plane here already for you. But you can see I just sort of click here, 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 and here. So if I were to zoom out a little bit, you can just sort of see that I just sort of traced sort of a rough area of an actual ground plane. So when I go back to that matched view, you can see it sort of fits that area just like that. Now, as I render that, notice that it renders the scene, that ground plane. I don't really see the ground plane because it's the background color, whatever the background is, but we are getting shadows on it now. So it is a surface that's there that I can put shadows or reflections on that surface. Okay. All right. At this point, we are out of time. I was able to show you everything that I wanted to show you today. So let's switch back to our slideshow here. And last thing I'd like to do is thank you for your time this afternoon. I should mention that this is just a few of the many features. Of course, in 25-30 minutes, I don't have time to show them all, but this is a good representative sampling of just a few of the many tools that are in bonzai3d. Be sure to check our website for future webinars. As we saw at the very beginning, there's a lot of new ones coming up. And you can log out whenever you want. We are done. If there's any questions you have, go ahead and type those in to the box, and I will see those questions over here, and I will answer those. And with that, I'd like to thank you and have a nice day. Give me a minute, and we'll start our question and answer session. Thank you.